Let me tell you something that nobody in your life right now has the courage to say to your face. If you are always surrounded by people, if your phone is always ringing, if you always need someone to go somewhere with you, if you cannot sit in a room by yourself for 2 hours without reaching for that device to fill the silence, then I want you to hear me very carefully right now. You are in danger. Not the kind of danger that comes with sirens and flashing lights. No. The most dangerous kind. The quiet kind. The kind where everything looks fine on the outside, where you are laughing at dinner tables and posting photographs and collecting likes from people who do not even know your middle name. And all the while, deep on the inside, something extraordinary is dying. Something that was placed inside you before you were born is suffocating. And the very people you are surrounding yourself with, the very crowd you're running with, they are holding the pillow over its face. I need you to understand something today. The crowd has never, in the entire history of human civilization, the crowd has never produced a great man or a great woman. Never. The crowd produces followers. The crowd produces consumers. The crowd produces people who know every word to every popular song, but cannot tell you the first sentence of their own life's purpose. The crowd is always moving. Oh yes, they are busy, they are active, they have places to be and people to see. But if you study where the crowd is going, if you trace the destination of that river of noise and opinion and social validation, you will find that it empties into one place, one single destination: the graveyard. The graveyard of average lives. The graveyard of unused gifts. The graveyard of brilliant ideas that were never born because the person who carried them was too afraid to leave the crowd long enough to hear them speak. Dr. Myles Munroe, one of the most profound minds this generation has ever been given. He said something that rearranged the furniture inside my soul. He said, the wealthiest place on the planet is not the oil fields of Saudi Arabia. It is not the diamond mines of South Africa. It is not the gold vaults of Wall Street. The wealthiest place on the planet is the graveyard. Because buried in the graveyard are inventions that were never invented. Books that were never written, businesses that were never built, songs that were never sung, cures for diseases that people are still dying from today. And why? Why are those treasures buried? Because the people who carried them chose the crowd over their calling. They chose the noise over the vision. They chose the comfort of belonging over the discomfort of becoming. Today, I am going to talk to you about something that this generation has been taught to fear. Something that social media has convinced you is a sign of failure. Something that the crowd will mock you for choosing. I am going to talk to you about the power of being alone. I want you to think about two animals. And I want you to think about them not as animals, but as philosophies. As two completely different approaches to life. The first animal is the sheep. Now, the sheep is not a stupid animal. Do not misunderstand me. The sheep has intelligence. The sheep has feelings. The sheep has potential. But the sheep has one fundamental operating principle that overrides everything else. And that principle is this: I must never be separated from the flock. Watch a sheep. Study it. The moment a sheep is separated from its group, it panics. Its heart rate elevates. It begins to make noise. It runs frantically in any direction just to find another body to stand next to. The sheep does not even care which direction the flock is moving. It does not evaluate whether the flock is heading toward green pasture or toward a cliff. The only thing the sheep cares about, the only thing that quiets the panic inside the sheep, is proximity to other sheep. And this is why the shepherd can lead an entire flock with one rod, because the sheep follow each other. You move one sheep, the others follow. You redirect the leader. And 10,000 sheep will walk into a slaughterhouse in an orderly, peaceful, completely cooperative line, because not one of them stopped to ask, where are we going? Now, I want you to hold that image. Hold it right there in your mind. And now I want you to look up. I want you to look up into a sky where no sheep will ever go. I want you to look at the eagle. The eagle does not fly in flocks. I want you to know that. The eagle does not form committees. The eagle does not call a meeting of the other eagles to vote on which direction to fly. The eagle does not post on social media asking for validation before it spreads its wings. The eagle finds a thermal, a rising column of warm air, and it locks its wings and it rises alone in silence to altitudes that would kill every other bird that attempted to follow. At 30,000 feet, where the air is thin and the cold is brutal, and the world below looks small and manageable and completely non-threatening, that is where the eagle lives. That is the eagle's normal. And from that altitude, the eagle can see what no other creature can see. The eagle can spot a fish beneath the surface of water from 2 miles away. Not because the eagle has magical eyes, but because the eagle paid the price to get to the altitude where that kind of vision becomes possible. You will never have that vision if you stay on the ground with the flock. Now, here is what I need you to understand. This is not poetry. This is not motivation speak. This is biology translated into philosophy. Because the eagle's anatomy, the very physical design of the eagle, is incompatible with flock behavior. The eagle's wingspan, its bone structure, its respiratory system, its hunting instincts, every single thing about how the eagle is built presupposes solitude, presupposes altitude, presupposes independence. And I want to ask you a question, a very serious question. When God, or if you prefer, when the universe, when nature, when whatever sovereign intelligence you believe designed human beings, when that intelligence was designing you, putting together your gifts, your personality, your capacity for imagination and innovation and love and creativity, do you really believe that the design was meant to be activated by committee? Do you really believe that the blueprint of your life was drawn up so that it would require the permission of the crowd to be executed? No, snort softly. Absolutely not. The design requires solitude. The design requires the altitude of isolation. The design requires that you find your thermal, that moment, that space, that sacred season of aloneness, and you lock your wings and you rise without asking anyone's permission, without waiting for anyone's understanding, without needing anyone's applause. Let me take you somewhere now. Let me take you to a place inside Dr. Myles Munroe's philosophy that I believe is the most important intellectual territory any human being can visit. Munroe had 3 concepts that formed the architecture of his entire teaching. And those 3 concepts were purpose, vision, and the graveyard. Purpose, he said, is the original intent of the manufacturer for the product. Not what the product decides it wants to be. Not what the market decides the product should be. Not what the crowd tells the product it is good for. The original intent of the one who made it. And he said, until you know your purpose, everything you do, no matter how successful it looks, is fundamentally meaningless. You can be famous and purposeless. You can be wealthy and purposeless. You can be surrounded by thousands of people who admire you and be completely, devastatingly purposeless. Purpose is not discovered in the crowd. Purpose is never found by consensus. You do not find your purpose by asking 10 people who you should be. You do not find your purpose by scrolling through someone else's life and deciding you want what they have. Purpose is whispered. It is not announced on a billboard. It is not voted on. It is whispered to you in the quiet places, in the moments when the noise falls away and something deep inside you, something that has been waiting with extraordinary patience, finally gets the silence it needs to speak. But here is the tragedy. Here is the thing that makes me want to grab this generation by the shoulders. Most people never hear that whisper. Not because it is not speaking, but because they have surrounded themselves with so much noise, so much social performance, so much crowd following and people pleasing, that the whisper cannot compete with the volume of their distraction. And then there is vision. Munroe said something about vision that I want you to carry with you for the rest of your life. He said, God gives vision to the individual, not to the group. Vision is always personal before it is communal. Vision is always singular before it is collective. Every great movement in human history began not with a committee, it began with one person who saw something that nobody else could see yet. And because they could see it and no one else could, they had a choice. They could shrink the vision down to the size that the crowd could accept. Or they could trust the vision, even when every person around them thought they were losing their mind. Moses did not take a vote before he walked into Pharaoh's palace. Abraham did not hold a neighborhood meeting before he left Ur and walked toward a land that existed nowhere except inside a promise given to him alone. Nelson Mandela did not poll his prison cell before he decided that 27 years of confinement would not extinguish what he carried. Steve Jobs did not ask the Market Research Committee whether the world was ready for a computer that fit in your pocket. Every single one of them had a vision that was personal, private, and completely incomprehensible to the crowd they were embedded in. And every single one of them at the critical moment had to choose the vision over the crowd. That is the choice you are being asked to make right now. Not tomorrow, right now. In this season of your life, where the people around you are making you feel guilty for being different, where the people around you are asking why you are so serious all of a sudden, why you do not come out like you used to, why you have been quiet, why you have been spending so much time alone. That social pressure, that guilt that is the crowd trying to pull you back down to the altitude where they are comfortable. Do not come down. Do not come down. Now I want to talk to you about something that this culture has turned into a pathology, something that therapists are being paid to help people escape, something that every social platform has been engineered specifically to make impossible. I want to talk to you about loneliness, but not the way you have been taught to think about it. There is a difference, a very important, life-altering difference between loneliness and solitude. And until you understand this difference, you will spend your entire life running from the very thing that could save you. Loneliness is the pain of unwanted isolation. It is the feeling that you are disconnected from others against your will. It is a signal, an alarm that says something is missing, something is broken. I need to find connection. And that pain is real, and it is valid, and it must be honored. But solitude is something else entirely. Solitude is the discipline of chosen aloneness. It is not the absence of people, it is the presence of yourself. It is walking into the quiet room not because no one will have you, but because you have chosen deliberately, intentionally, courageously to spend time in the most important relationship you will ever have. The relationship with the person you were designed to become. Most people are terrified of that relationship. And I understand why. Because when the noise goes away and you are alone with yourself, you have to confront things. You have to look at the gap between who you are and who you know you are supposed to be. And that gap can feel like an accusation. It can feel like failure. But, and I want you to hear me on this, that gap is not an accusation. That gap is an invitation. That discomfort you feel in the silence is not punishment. It is pressure. The same pressure that turns carbon into diamond. The same pressure that pushes a seed through soil. The same pressure that builds the muscle that was broken down by the weight. The crowd runs from that pressure. The crowd fills every silence with noise, specifically to avoid feeling that pressure. They put in the earbuds the moment they wake up. They turn on the television the moment they get home. They scroll and scroll and scroll, not because they are interested in what they are seeing, but because the alternative is sitting with themselves. And sitting with themselves means feeling the pressure of their unlived potential. You must not run from that pressure. You must run toward it. I want to tell you about a season in the life of every great person that historians always mention, but audiences rarely study. They study the achievements. They study the speeches, the books, the businesses, the victories, but they barely mention the silence that preceded all of it. Before Jesus began his public ministry, there were 40 days in the wilderness, alone. No disciples, no crowd, no miracles being performed. Just a man and the desert and the deepest questions a human being can face. Before Nelson Mandela emerged as the moral conscience of a nation, there were 27 years on Robben Island, alone with his thoughts, alone with his principles, alone with the decision about who he would allow himself to become inside a space designed to break him. Before Abraham Lincoln became the president who held a fractured nation together, there were years of political failure and profound depression and long walks in the dark that no one witnessed. Before every breakthrough, there is a wilderness. Before every public victory, there is a private agony. Before the eagle soars above the clouds, it finds the thermal in the silent air. The problem with this generation, and I say this not to condemn, but to diagnose. The problem with this generation is that it has been taught that the wilderness is a malfunction. Social media has made it appear as though everyone else is at a party you were not invited to. Everyone else is succeeding and connecting and celebrating. And if you are sitting alone in a quiet room doing the deep work of becoming, then something must be wrong with you. You must be losing. You must be behind. You must reach out to someone, post something, perform something to prove that you are still in the game. groan softly. That lie is killing your potential. The wilderness is not a malfunction. The wilderness is a manufacturing plant. It is where raw material is turned into finished product. It is where gifts are sharpened, where character is built, where vision is clarified, where the noise of other people's opinions is finally quiet enough that you can hear the blueprint of your own life. You cannot rush the wilderness. You cannot shortcut it. You cannot Instagram your way through it. Without performing for anyone. Let me talk to you now about what I call building in secret. Because this is one of the most important disciplines that any high-performing, purpose-driven human being must master. The crowd has an opinion about you. Of course they do. The crowd always has an opinion. The crowd has decided what you are capable of based on what they have seen so far. The crowd has categorized you, filed you away in a folder, and the crowd gets very uncomfortable, very defensive, very aggressive when you begin to act in ways that are inconsistent with the folder they filed you in. Have you noticed this? Have you noticed that the moment you start changing, the people who claim to love you the most become the most resistant to your change? Have you noticed that the moment you stop drinking, the friends who drank with you suddenly feel judged? That the moment you start waking up at 5 in the morning to build something, the people who used to stay up late with you suddenly have opinions about who you are becoming? That is not an accident. That is the nature of social systems. Every social system, every group, every circle, every crowd has a homeostatic mechanism, a self-correcting system. And that system is designed to do one thing: maintain equilibrium. Keep everyone at roughly the same level. Because if one person rises too high, it makes the others uncomfortable with where they are standing. This is why crabs in a bucket pull each other down. Not because they are evil, not because they hate the crab that is climbing, but because the system itself, the bucket, cannot tolerate uneven distribution. And the people around you are no different. So, what is the answer? Build in secret. Stop announcing your plans to people who have not paid for a ticket to your destination. Stop sharing your dreams with people who still do not believe in their own. Stop performing your transformation for an audience that has already decided who you are. Go quiet. Go deep. Do the work where no one can see it. Build the muscle. Read the book. Develop the skill. Sharpen the vision in the privacy of your own discipline. And then one day, not to prove something to them, but simply because the work is done, emerge. Because here is what the crowd never tells you. They will celebrate the result even if they resisted the process. They will congratulate your success even if they mocked your solitude. They will say they always knew you had it in you, even if what they actually always did was try to talk you out of it. Build in secret. Emerge in power. Now, I want to speak to someone specific right now. I want to speak to you, the one watching this, who has been feeling guilty, who has been pulling back from people and relationships and social obligations because something inside you is awakening. And that awakening requires space and quiet and aloneness. And the people around you are making you feel like you are being arrogant or antisocial or strange. I want to tell you something. That pull you are feeling is not arrogance. That is not selfishness. That is not a disorder. That is your purpose starting its engine. That is the vision beginning to load. That is the most important thing that will ever happen inside you, happening right now, and it needs you to protect it. You do not owe the crowd access to your process. You do not owe anyone a front row seat to your becoming. The caterpillar does not open the cocoon halfway through to show people its progress. The cocoon is sealed. The transformation happens in total privacy. And what comes out, what emerges on the other side of that dark, tight, uncomfortable, completely solitary process is something that no longer needs to walk. Give yourself permission to close the cocoon. Give yourself permission to go silent, to stop explaining, to stop justifying, to stop shrinking the vision to fit inside the crowd's comfort zone. Give yourself permission to be misunderstood for a season. Because a season of being misunderstood by the crowd is infinitely better than a lifetime of being understood but never becoming what you were put on this earth to be. Munroe said it. He said it clearly, and he said it powerfully. He said, if you die without emptying yourself, if you go to that grave with your gifts still locked inside you, that is the greatest tragedy in the universe. Not poverty, not sickness, not failure. The greatest tragedy is a life that was full of potential and empty of expression. Do not let that be you. I want to close with this. There is a moment in the life of an eagle, a specific, documented, scientifically observed moment that I believe is one of the most powerful metaphors in nature. It is called the storm response. When a storm is coming, most birds do what the crowd does. They fly down. They find shelter. They hide in the trees, in the bushes, in whatever protection the ground can offer. They duck and they huddle and they wait for the storm to pass. But the eagle does something different. The eagle sees the storm coming from miles away, because remember, the eagle lives at altitude, and altitude gives you sight. And what the eagle does when it sees the storm is not fly down. The eagle turns. It faces the storm directly. It locks its wings at a specific angle, a deliberate, precise aerodynamic angle, and it uses the very wind of the storm, the violent, destructive, chaotic wind that drove every other bird into hiding. It uses that wind to lift itself higher. The storm that grounds the flock elevates the eagle. Let me say that one more time, because I need it to land inside you the way it landed inside me. The storm that grounds the flock elevates the eagle. The season of being alone and misunderstood and underestimated, for the person who has done the work in secret, who has built the character in the wilderness, who has refused to let the crowd define their ceiling. That storm is not a threat. That storm is a thermal. That storm is the very thing that will carry you to altitudes that the flock will never reach. But, and this is everything, you cannot use the storm as a thermal if you spend all your time in the trees with the flock. You can only use it if you have already done the work of learning to fly alone. If you have already developed the wing structure that isolation builds. If you have already found your altitude in the quiet seasons before the storm arrived. This is why the time you spend alone right now, this season of building in secret, of going quiet, of being misunderstood, of choosing your purpose over your popularity. This is not wasted time. This is not a detour. This is not you falling behind. This is you learning the angle of your wings. This is you developing the muscle memory of altitude. This is you becoming the kind of person who, when the storm hits and everyone else runs for the trees, locks your wings and rises. Stop following the crowd. The crowd is not going where you are going. The crowd cannot see what you are being equipped to see. The crowd does not have the wingspan you are developing. And if you stay with the crowd long enough, if you keep shrinking yourself, silencing yourself, editing yourself to fit inside their comfort, you will arrive at the same destination they are heading to. The graveyard, full, unexpressed, unfinished. You were not designed for that destination. You were designed for altitude, for vision, for the kind of solitary, disciplined, deeply intentional life that looks strange from the ground but extraordinary from above. So go alone if you must. Be misunderstood if you must. Sit in the quiet room if you must. Close the cocoon if you must. Face the storm if you must. But whatever you do, do not die full. The world does not need another person who almost became what they were made to be. The world does not need another person who had the gift and buried it because the crowd made them feel foolish for trying. The world needs you at altitude. The world needs what you have been building in secret. The world needs the vision that was whispered to you and only you in the quiet places. Go be alone. Go be dangerous. Go be everything you were made to be. Even if you have to become it completely beautifully, powerfully alone.